I'm David Alemian, and I want to welcome you to the David Alemian Show. And today, I've got a special guest. I have Colonel Mike Droll. Colonel Mike Droll has spent 47 years in law enforcement and security as a peace officer, investigator, manager, and director of various agencies and companies throughout the U.S. Mike has been an Arizona Ranger for the past 17 years, where he served as the CEO and state commander for this 501c3 law enforcement auxiliary. He is a Medal of Merit recipient from the Hispanic Medal of Honor Society and volunteers his time providing security and support to our veterans throughout the country. He's a husband, father, grandfather. He doesn't even look that old, but yeah, he's a grandfather and currently runs several businesses. Mike's father was a U.S. Navy veteran. My dad was a U.S. Navy veteran. And his son is currently a U.S. Marine. Colonel Mike Droll, State Commander of the Arizona Rangers, thank you for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you. So, Mike, I got a question for you. Actually, I got a lot of questions.
Cool.
And I want to start with the Pearl Harbor flag. You carried a flag from Pearl Harbor's 75th anniversary all the way to the White House. Can you share what that flag symbolizes for you personally and what moment resonated most along those travels? Just tell us about your journey from Pearl Harbor all the way to the White House.
Well, it's several flags over several journeys, and as you know, Flag Day that's coming up on Saturday is all about the
Mm-hmm.
symbolism. So to be
Yeah.
part of not only that journey for these historical places from Pearl Harbor in World War II all the way to our state capitol and the White House has a significance in itself. But the particular flags are several. One is a flag that the Hispanic Medal of Honor Society, has possession of. It's off of the USS Missouri, which is obviously the ship that the World War II surrender was signed on. So we have that flag we take all over the world. We have another flag off the USS Enterprise, which was the first U.S. Navy nuclear aircraft carrier. And that has been all over the world for us, with us. One of the flags that we recently took to Washington, D.C., that had been in Pearl, it's been in all 50 states, it's been in many countries all over the world, is the Patriot flag, which obviously represents the service of our military, first responders. And we had the honor of taking that back for the president's inauguration and just this past January.
So let me tell you, what was the moment out of all of those, out of that journey or those journeys, is there a moment that stood out the most for you?
Well, it's actually two, and it has to do with the specific individuals that were with those symbols that we have, that are obviously national treasures and very important. But more important than that is that we had the privilege of being with a World War II veteran, the oldest living survivor at Pearl Harbor for the 75th anniversary on the USS Missouri, where we reflew that flag. But Ray Chavez was
Mm-hmm.
104 at the time. And to be standing with him on that ship during the 75th anniversary was probably one of the most magnificent moments we ever had, to be with importantly the flag, but more importantly with who he was and what he was as a part of the history of this country and that era. The second one, um, more recently, was with Jake Larson. He just
Mm-hmm.
went back to the 81st anniversary. He's 102 years old. Again, had the honor and privilege to be with him when we went back to Normandy. He survived not only D-Day, but he survived the Battle of the Bulge under Patton's reign in Luxembourg. We took him back there for that journey. Again, 70 years later. So those are probably the two big ones that stand out for me.
Those sound like two big moments. Okay, I got another question. Motivation to serve. After 47 years in law enforcement, it's a long time, and security, what first inspired you? I mean, think way back. What first inspired you to dedicate your life?
Well, it was a neighbor that I had while I was going through high school. that was a deputy
Hmm.
sheriff,
Yeah.
and he took me out on a ride along
Very cool.
to see what it was like to go and what they did every day.
And how old were you then? How old were you then?
I was 16 years old.
Okay. All right.
And we were allowed to go on ride-alongs and watch what they do. Obviously, not get involved in any of the situations, but
Sure.
it was a sense of going. You're out there helping people.
Right.
People were thankful. They were respectful. It was something that it hit me as wow. I never knew all of this stuff that went into it. So I joined a cadet program like Boy Scouts do, that was attached to law enforcement, where you can go out and ride-alongs. You learn how to write reports. You learn how to talk on the radio. You get to participate in the activity without being old enough or certified to do it, to learn more about it. And I did that for a couple of years in high school. And so um, I just felt like this was a calling. It was something that we had an accident that was a lot of injuries. The deputy said, "You stayed calm. You seem like this would be a good path for you in crisis situations to where you don't get all bent out of shape." And I thought about it, and I thought, "Yeah, this probably is a good path for me." So I went in to the police academy right out of high school.
Wow. That's quite a beginning. You just dove right in. Speaking of which, your family has a legacy of, I mean, with your father as a Navy veteran, your son's in the Marines, and tell your son for me, thank you for his service.
I will.
And service runs in your family. How has that legacy shaped your own journey and your approach to leadership?
Well, it's a humbling experience, first of all. And, um, you get a lot of thank yous and appreciation, all that stuff. I kind of look at it as a little bit selfish. It makes me feel good as a person. Um, if you've never had that feeling before, to serve somebody else and realize that we all need help. But to be a somebody
Mhm.
that can provide that, to make
Yeah.
somebody else uh, feel better or
It
get
makes you
through
feel
issues
good.
or problems, it makes me feel good about myself. And don't know how to explain it other than if you've experienced, you know what that feeling is. But I know uh, teachers, nurses, law enforcement, first responders, firefighters, military, they all have that sense. You just don't do it as a job, it's a calling.
Hmm.
And I think they all have that camaraderie and that same kind of feeling to want to do that for other people and the betterment of all.
I totally get it.
So
It comes from within. It really
yes,
does.
yes,
It's not something you can teach.
um,
You have to have it.
yes.
I totally understand. All right, you got something very amazing. The Medal of Merit Recognition. I mean, receiving the Medal of Merit from the Hispanic Medal of Honors Society. That's a remarkable honor. What did that recognition mean to you and your mission?
Well, I think it helped me through reflection to look how honored and privileged I was to be part of something that was a lot bigger than all of us relative to the history, our World War II veterans. We started with being able to support and provide security services for, again, these veterans, these national treasures that again they're treasures. They need to be protected and guarded. So in those security services we provided, before I knew it, it was funeral services for our fallen, uh, being laid to rest. It was taking things that only so many medals and flags that go with the Medal of Honor in terms of what heroism and what sacrifice goes with that. So to be with those treasures or those individuals associated with those treasures, it kind of just hit me over time to what they meant, stuff that I would have never known about had not I seen it or touched it or had those conversations with them. And it just over time it became uh, a drive to be part of that. So anytime, hey, if there's something going on, somebody needs something, somebody needs to be taken
Hmm.
somewhere in the world, something needs to be watched so that it's protected. It just felt like such an honor and a privilege to be able to do that. And before I knew it, they said, thank you by giving me that. But if I could pick anything in the world that I could do for the rest of my life or my time, it would be that kind of stuff.
Wow. That brings up to mind supporting veterans. You volunteer extensively to support veterans nationwide. Tell us, and the viewers about a memorable moment when your security work directly impacted. Can you think of a time like that?
Well, Ray being 104 to be part of the team and the group that did all the organization to take him back to Pearl for the 75th anniversary and have his daughter there, who was a U.S. Navy also a veteran.
He must have felt
And
amazing. He must have
oh
felt
my
great about
gosh,
that.
it's and they're all very similar in terms of they love talking to kids, the
Yeah.
ones that feel that they have been able to still be here to have a voice for the people that aren't anymore, that look
Mhm.
at those people that were past are the heroes, and they don't look at themselves that way. So
No,
to
they
be able
don't.
to present those audiences or those environments that they normally wouldn't be able to have access to in the
Sure.
public is overwhelming.
When you're 104, I mean, yeah, he needs help getting from point A to point B. It must have made him feel so good to have somebody like assigned to say, I'm gonna, he just must have made him feel so proud.
No, I feel lucky to be able to be in that position. Jake, he just like I say, Jake Larson, he's 102. He's been going every year back to Normandy for the anniversaries. We took him back to Ireland, to Belfast, and where he had landed 80 years before. Um,
Wow.
they opened up. We had dignitaries and ambassadors, and they treated him like he should be as a national treasure and an honor. We took him up to visit the causeway, and it was windy. It was very cold. Um, and he he would tell you the story of pushing him all the way up that hill to get to
Yeah.
a again a nice place in Ireland to see. But his family's very supportive, and he's still out there talking and going everywhere he can get to. And so it's just an honor to be part of their lives to help support that kind of stuff.
I love it. I love it. That makes me think of something else completely different. What a lot of people don't realize or they take for granted is people in law enforcement are under a lot of pressure to make decisions like split second decisions that are life and death or can impact an entire situation. Think back and walk us through a high stakes situation where quick thinking made all the difference, either in law enforcement or veteran security, anything like that that comes to mind.
Well, it kind of all gets grouped into stuff over time. I mean, 40
Sure.
years in law enforcement, most of the stuff you go to is over by the time you get there.
Right.
People don't realize the training that goes into de-escalation and staying calm in
Hmm.
situations where people get heated and overexcited. You see that in Los Angeles right now, to sit there
Oh yeah.
calmly and hold the line or not get involved at the people yelling and throwing stuff. It takes a special character and person to be able to do that, which again, I admire even after all these years to watch people that, hey, we're all human. It's hard to stay within your professionalism. But you watch those stories, you watch it on TV, and you have to appreciate the people that do that every day. So yeah, there's the car chases, there's the running after the burglars, there's the times where you have your gun out for to basically hopefully that it doesn't lead to a lethal situation, but it does. It requires the right mentality, it requires good training, and again, you can't help but applaud um, everything you watch on TV these days, the respect that we all have for what they do
Oh,
all day long,
it's
especially now
amazing.
times.
It's amazing what's going on right now as we speak. It's just happening. And sometimes, and like you said, to stay calm in the face of all of that, that's a decision because sometimes your natural instinct is to do something and you want to de-escalate it and stay calm. I totally get that. I
Well, it's
understand.
all on TV now too. And back in the old days, you didn't have all of that, and you didn't
Yeah,
have to think about that as much. You did what you thought was right, and there was nobody there to second guess that. And today, you're on camera, everything's recorded for everybody's protection. But again, it causes that thought process to go, what is somebody going to think? Especially if they're not there, they're looking at a small clip of something that
sure.
doesn't even reflect what really is going on. So your question about how does outsiders think of a situation, they're not really aware of all that goes into it or what's going on, what you can't see on the camera. So it
They're not
makes it
seeing
very
the whole
difficult.
picture.
Yes, makes it very
They're just seeing a
difficult.
little tiny piece of the whole picture. I totally
Correct.
get that. Okay, Arizona Rangers leadership. As state commander and CEO of the Arizona Rangers, how have you balanced the responsibility of leading a 501c3 auxiliary while also running not one, but several businesses? I mean, for most of us, just running a business is a full time and a half job. I mean, how do you do both or all of them?
Well, being fortunate to have worked in careers and things that have allowed me to have flexibility with my time means that I get to do a lot of things, but I get to choose when and how I do them. And so it is a lot of hours. I have a lot of support. The Arizona Rangers, there's 500 members. There's 500 Rangers out there throughout the state of Arizona. They take patrol cars out, they direct traffic, they go on search and rescue. There's a whole staff of hierarchy. There's a board of directors. So it's not one person. It's a whole group of people dedicated.
A
They're not
team.
paid. They
It's a team.
volunteer their time. Last year,
Yeah,
I think they put in 100,000 hours in total to the state of
for free.
Arizona
They
for
do it for
free,
free. Yeah.
buy their own uniforms, their own gear, and
So it
for
costs
that
them
same
money.
that same heart we talked about doesn't really have to do with money or I don't have the time.
Right.
These guys, men and women, go out there and do it because that's where their heart, their dedication, their patriotism is. And a lot of people have that. Just thankful that we have an organization that puts that all together and dedicates that time. So it is a lot of time and effort. Volunteerism, the same thing with patriotism, the same thing with these career paths we've talked about. It's just a special kind of person that does that stuff, and I'm thankful to belong to part of it.
That brings up something I want to ask. You talk about volunteerism and putting in 100,000 hours with the group. And there's that expression, many hands make for light work or lighter work.
Yes, yes.
Well, recruitment. Here's something I know a little bit about. There's a shortage of police officers and people with skill and law enforcement nationwide. And these are paid officers.
Right.
Oh, and over the decades, what's been your biggest hurdle in attracting new members to be volunteers to the Arizona Rangers? Because what's would you say is the most effective strategy that you found?
Well, the difficulty in um, the media, the litigation that takes place, all the stuff that goes around being risk adverse and not wanting to go out of your way to help somebody and fear that somebody's going to sue you for
They don't want
something
to
that
get
you're trying to
involved.
do the right thing, has definitely contributed to the difficulty for which
Sure.
people would normally choose to do this and
Hmm.
then evaluate the cost benefit and think about, what risk are you taking? What could this cost me? Could I be sued? And that's definitely made it more difficult. Um, Society, in terms of everybody being judgmental and seeing everything that occurs in those snippets we talked about, in terms of going, oh, well, they shouldn't have done this and they shouldn't have done that without really knowing the situation or evaluating has made it difficult for people to go into this career path. But on the other side of the coin, and full circle to taking the flags, taking these veterans out to meet kids, tell the stories, have people turn what would be something on TV into reality to hear that this really happened. It is our history to them to see or touch the flag that we unfurl every time we go around the world or to another state or back to Washington, D.C. seems to have a big effect on our younger children. It's
Hmm.
not just a game on a computer. It's like
Sure.
it's more interesting real life is.
Yeah,
And
it's
the
real
more we
life.
can do that, I think the more it's impacting the ability for people to go on, you know what? I think this would be a career. You know what? I think it is noble to go into our military or become a policeman or do something that it isn't about the money or the reward. It's about service. It's about doing what's right and you feeling good that you're contributing to the betterment of our society. And I think the more we can do that, um, the easier time we'll have in terms of moving in the right direction for recruitment against all the odds that are out there right now.
Which brings me to retention. You have recruitment and then you have retention. And then volunteer attendance. A lot of organizations, they struggle to keep volunteers engaged long term. I mean, it's one thing to ask somebody to volunteer to do something, or it's short term or for an event. You guys, you're long term. So, from your experience, what keeps these seasoned rangers motivated to stay active year after year? It really is a long.
Well, back to the certain kind of people that,
Yeah.
find purpose and this is a
Mm-hmm.
good fit. That really
Yeah.
applies to their lives, whether it's regardless of what job it is. You just have to continue to find people's strengths, give them opportunities to apply those strengths so that they have purpose, whether it's in an organization, whether it's a project. My son, as an example, went in right out of high school. He's stuck out in the desert at 29 Palms. He's moved up in ranks. He's changed jobs. He's a sniper, a 50 cal machine gun guy. Been back in Quantico. He's back down in Pendleton. And the same thing was in law enforcement. You could be a motor, you're a detective, you move up in rank, you have different responsibilities from the street to the administration. So um, once you found your career path and your brotherhood and the people that you identify with, there's
Right.
all kinds of options to stay challenged,
Mm-hmm.
to continue to self educate or go through additional training and make challenges out of your whole life. And as you know, it's a book. There's a lot of chapters,
It's a
and
lot of
it's just
chapters.
rewarding. It's just rewarding that this is this era. The next chapter is a whole different game, depending on where you're at, who you're working with. And I think in an organization where you get up to, whether it's 500 Rangers, whether it's a division out of a military unit, you can go as far as you want to go in terms of if you want to challenge yourself or learn a new skill, or again, look at life and go, look, some of us like to be out there and doing the activity every day on the street. It
Mm-hmm.
requires some people that are administrators that are good at basically keeping protocol and writing the directives or reacting to, again, the health of the organization that keep it going, whether it's, how many hours, how do you recruit, how do you manage the finances, how do you take care of a situation that comes up that isn't normal that you have to react to. So we all have our skill sets and contribute. And as you said, I think it's about being a great team and being with people that have that same sense of service
I
that
like
make it
that.
work. Yeah,
Okay, so what that makes me think is, over time, some things never change and other things change with time. So the evolution of law enforcement over, let's say, nearly 5 decades, and like, for example, the way you came into law enforcement and
right,
security, right?
right.
What has, in law enforcement, what has transformed significantly? What changes would you say, or what are the biggest changes, if any, impact how you recruit and retain personnel? I mean, over the years, there's got to be some between
Well,
yesterday and today.
there is. I think there's a degree of professionalism in terms of being a blue collar person, and you went out and did things that everybody did in the neighborhood, and had a lot of benefits to it, where everybody knew everybody, and you could go talk to Johnny's dad instead of lock him up and take him to jail. Hey, he did this and it was wrong. Seem to be more commonplace and appropriate. Um, but back to the media, the litigious society, you have to take more of a professional approach, that even though you may think this is appropriate for this situation, you kind of have to go a little bit more methodical about it. And an
Hmm.
example being for a drunk driver, we know who that guy was, lock up your car, somebody would come and pick you up. That seemed to be the norm 30, 40 years ago.
Sure.
Now, the awareness of safety and how many people die every year, and the couple of drinks, you don't know if that's going to turn out bad or not. Society has kind of changed to where, no, it's not acceptable. You don't drink and you don't drive. And so that
That's why we
leeway or
have
that
Uber.
ability, that ability to, it wasn't right or wrong, it was just different at the time, but that's changed, and now it's a more of an accepted norm to where you don't do this. And if you do, here's what's going to happen, which leads to consequence and hopefully prevents those bad things from happening. So that's changed over the years. The training and the techniques and the stuff we've learned over the more you do, the better you get. It occurs in the military. It occurs in the old days, back to school shootings. You used to wait till you had all the support and the backup before you went in. Certainly, history has taught us that no, people get hurt if you don't go in right away. So that's changed. And you could probably apply that to any business and any organization to go, we learn by doing and we learn from each other. And hopefully it's a improvement process that changes over time. So, but we're certainly a lot more careful and much more aware today of how things can escalate very quickly and how we need to be careful about what we do. So I think we're better today.
That's good. Speaking of time, mentoring the next generation, I mean, the young people. You've mentored countless of young officers and volunteers, I'm sure, and many of them look up to you. What core values do you prioritize when building someone up to when building someone up to carry the torch?
Good
What do you
question.
look for?
As
Yeah.
there's a philosophical side that says, look, your parents and your upbringing have everything to do with the values, the morals, understanding right from wrong. And the better that foundation, the better can make decisions in life, right?
Hmm.
But we all come to those crossroads. We all have our temptations, but I try to lead by example, I guess, is still holds true. Who you are, what you do when you have those decisions to make. Um, People will give you more value in what you do, not what you say, from your children to your coworkers to the people. So I think maintaining good character and being a good person and helping
Hmm.
others and speaking kindly and trying to help people is probably the best thing you can do as a role model and as a leader for everybody that's around you that knows you is a big one. Um,
Yeah,
and again, thankfully, we have a lot of good people out there trying to doing the right thing.
it's a good thing.
I
It's a
wish
good
more
thing.
people would listen to more people, but we know that's not really how it works.
Well, yeah, that's a problem. Speaking of leadership, you have security leadership and then there's business leadership. You wear two hats. There's the security hat, there's the business hat. Leading both public service teams and private companies requires two different skill sets, I would imagine. How do you adapt your leadership when transitioning between those two worlds? Because it is different.
Well, going from law enforcement in terms of the idea that this is right, this is wrong, here's what the procedure says, here's what you're supposed to do. Same as our military to, go, don't think too much, just do what you were trained to do. To the business world was interesting because you don't realize that's the world you're living in until you're out of it. You hang out with your buddies. We all look, act, react, work the same way or similar ways. In the business world or the real world, much more diversity, much more. None of us are the same. We all have different jobs and responsibilities. So it was a learning process for me um, in terms of being able to utilize interpersonal skills, realizing the goal isn't necessarily a right or wrong thing. It's what's the goal of the business to grow, to be profitable, to keep everybody happy, to recruit, to retain, and um, and you realize that whole set of goals and values had its own skill set to basically make work. And some people can't make that transition. Some people fortunately can. And but that was one of the big things for me to look back and realize how structured this world was and how unstructured this one was.
Sure.
When you have to sell something or accomplish something or motivate a team or work within a budget, those are things you typically don't do as a military person or a law enforcement person or as a teacher. You don't know how all the big stuff works. And luckily, I was able to um, be in a career path that gave me the opportunity to not only go like at Mervin's, we arrested 38,000 shoplifters and 2,000 employees a year. And the skill set was what you saw, how do you detain them, how do you process them? Management is go, No, the goal is how do you prevent them from doing that in the first place? That had nothing to do with catching people after the fact. It had more to do with how do you prevent that so people won't have that inclination to do it in the first place. And it was a whole different, again, skill set required, a whole different environment. And again, over 20, 30 years, I was able to take that into running my own businesses and applying those same skill sets. So been very, very fortunate to have those opportunities come up.
You know, you've had a long career and it takes personal resilience. Facing dangerous assignments and long deployments can be taxing. What habits or mindset have helped you stay resilient through it all?
Change. I've never been a person to sit in an office all day, or the people that sit in a cockpit of an airplane for 4 hours at a time in a confined space. There's people that can do that in 8 hours on a computer programming or networking. For me personally, my motivation is to go do something different every day, meet new people, um, be involved in new challenges that give me purpose. Um, and some people, their goal is to get to an age or financial situation to retire and go lay on the beach. I don't think that'll ever be in my forte. So for me, my motivation is the fact that I've been very fortunate, very lucky. I've got good family. I've got great friends. I've got um, a lot of things in the buckets that I have, those hats, as you call them, to
Mhm.
basically do something different all the time. And that's my joy and my excitement to be able to be part of all of the worlds that I exist in. And again, look here, I'm on a show, being able to talk to you about all of this stuff, which is, you know, last week I had no idea, and here we are.
Here we are. Speaking of which, looking forward into the future, vision for the Rangers' future, looking ahead, how do you see the Arizona Rangers evolve? In other words, what will ensure the organization continues to attract top talent and committed volunteers going forward, attract and
Well,
retain?
the amount of activities that we do out in the public, whether it's executive protection or taking a car out, or people that don't recognize the patch or the badge and say, didn't even know what's an Arizona Ranger, and have that opportunity to talk about our history. I mean, they were like the Texas Rangers originally, 1901 to 1909. Arizona couldn't become a state. It was the Wild West, bank robberies, cattle rustling. Governor put together 14 law enforcement guys, copied the Texas Rangers to become the law enforcement to the territory to clean it up. So they were here from 1901 to 1909. There was a TV show in the 1950s called The 26 Men. That was about the Arizona Rangers. And to know that history of law enforcement, how Arizona became a state, um, those conversations by meeting people that don't know what an Arizona Ranger is, has led to the growth from 1957 to now, going from a little group of 10, 15 people up to 500, 100,000 hours a year. We have relationships with other states that want to start the same kind of volunteer programs. As you
Nice.
said, there aren't enough peace officers. It takes a lot more training to become a peace officer than a volunteer, but look, if we can free up a deputy or an officer from sitting behind a patrol car for 3 hours at a wreck so that they can be available for an important call that requires their immediate attention, we feel that adds values. And every state has
It
those types
does.
of things. Um, and to get and help other states or other organizations understand how that's built, what kind of people you need to get, what kind of training you need to give, I think is the future of the Rangers to help other states build those kinds of organizations and continue to grow. We could use 1,000 more in the state for the needs of law enforcement in today's times.
I like it. One last question. You've had a long career, which means you leave a legacy and you have had an impact. So when you look back on your career, what do you hope your greatest contribution will be to your family, to the Rangers, and to the nation? So what would you say would
Well, probably my greatest contribution I would hope would be to my children's life so that they can be successful in terms of
that's a
moving
big
on,
deal?
and in terms of the friends, my coworkers, the people I've been blessed to be around or be part of for all of these years. I would hope they would be able to say, "Hey, Mike was a good guy. He helped people." And that would be the greatest compliment or acclimate that I could ever think. And I'll be happy with it.
And to the veterans,
The veterans. You are heroes. We would not have a country. We would not have the freedom.
so true.
We would not have the liberty that we have. Um, Even if you don't realize it, just know that that a lot of Americans are out there do realize that and respect it. I know we see the snippets out there of people that don't, but that's the exception. In my whole career, people go, "Oh, it's got to be hard to do this or do that," but the majority of Americans are proud of their country. They are proud of
They
their
are.
law enforcement, first responders, and they are proud of the military that has given us those abilities to live in this country. So thank you from all of us, and keep doing what you're doing.
And thank you, Mike. What you've done over their entire career it's amazing. I've loved hearing your story. And I want to thank you for joining us today on the David Alemian Show. And I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you
It was
so
my
much.
pleasure. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.